And now we are excited to welcome Epic Entertainment's award-winning charity Hill and Steve Sheldon, who have produced numerous immersive experiences and themed entertainment events, including Queen Mary's Dark Harbor and Orlando's Dark Harbor's Point of No Return. So please welcome Steve Sheldon and Charity Hill.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah. You know, before we start, I just want to thank TEA, USC TEA, and Midsummer Scream for having us. We're really excited to be a part of this, and I think it's going to be fantastic. Before we get started, I just want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I am a fellow Trojan. I went to USC, fight on. And I actually got my start producing events at USC. So I was a social chair for my sorority, but I also was one of the founding members of USC Spectrum, which is the on-campus events production company that produces events on campus and in the local community. So it was really great to be a part of the inception of that. And I started most of my early life on stage in front of the camera, from off-Broadway to television shows here in Hollywood and a couple of really terrible movies. But it gave me this great perspective of immersive theater. And I think that's what really drew me to themed entertainment. And with that, I spent several decades, because I'm old now, producing, all types of events, from concerts and festivals to athletic events to themed entertainment to theater itself, and even award shows. And about a decade ago, I met Steve, and we've been producing events ever since.
Yeah, and I am also a USC alum, fight on. I got my start in the world of events back in high school, planning parties. And then when I was at USC, I actually worked for one of the alumni donor offices, the USC Associates, producing tailgate parties and alumni mixers and things like that. And launched into an event in entertainment and live events that ultimately led me to the Queen Mary back in 2011. And they really wanted to add an events program that would revitalize the ship and drive a new audience there and really make the property and the ship relevant to a new generation. So over the course of a couple of years, 3 years, I think we built a program that was managing 60 to 70 annual events, and that had increased attendance to the property by about 500% annually. That's where I met Charity, and we kind of figured out that we were of like mind and goals, and decided to launch Epic.
It didn't hurt that we were both Trojans.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, before we get started, today we're going to talk about the art of producing an epic experience. So we thought we would just give you a teaser of one of our recent projects, so you can have an idea of what it is that we do.
Darling, it's the ringmaster here. So good to see you. It is my distinct privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to the 10th anniversary season of the Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. Won't you join us?
Technical difficulties, I think.
I think the screen might be lagging a little bit.
Yeah, I think my screen froze, so I don't know what it's doing. I've got the much feared spinning circle on my screen at the moment. So.
Well, I guess we can wait for this to spin, but if we're talking about, who we are as Epic, one thing that I think that is really important to share is that, we decided to launch this production company because we wanted to be able to have a say in curating the types of events that we do, the shows that we do, and to have a bigger say in the creative process. And one of the things that makes, I think, our events so special is that, oh, here we go. is that we have a really great team. But before we do that, we'll just dive through some of our other event projects. Maybe.
I think that's Dominic on their end trying to fix whatever is going on with my computer. Sorry, guys.
Back one. There we go.
There we go. Sorry for the delay in the video, technical difficulties, which brings me to one of our points that we'll talk about earlier is roll with the punches. You got to be able to roll with the punches. So that was a video that covered Dark Harbor's 10th anniversary. Dark Harbor is one of the events that we produce that probably is nearest and dearest to both charities and my hearts. It's at the Queen Mary, and that was our 10th anniversary season. We are sad that this year we are on hiatus due to coronavirus, but we will be back in 2021. Halloween is something that both Charity and I really love, and we love doing Halloween events, but we also do a lot of other events outside of the realm of the Halloween industry. We have done Chill at the Queen Mary and the first ever ice adventure park in the United States. Holiday by the Bay in San Diego. Night Garden is a light show, spectacular in Miami that we've done for the last couple of years, the operations for, and a number of other events here locally as well. We really, as a company, we provide a wide variety of options to our clients. We love to run with things from A to Z, and the majority of the time when we produce events, we own it. We own it from start to finish, from conceptualization to implementation and operation. But when clients have a need for, consulting just on marketing and promotion of events or on operating or HR or anything like that, we offer those services as well.
Yep, absolutely. So what I was saying earlier is, we came together so that we could work with like-minded people and so that we could create and produce the projects that we want to create and produce at the time we want to create and produce them. So it's really important for us to, work with people who are like-minded, work with people who have the same work ethic that we do. And one of our biggest things is that you got to have a kick-ass time doing it. I mean, it's literally a part of our mission statement. We feel that if we're having fun doing what we do, then we have that much greater of a chance for all of our guests and you to have fun and our team to have fun. And that all translates into an epic experience.
Absolutely. I think the piece that is most important in our universe, one of the pieces that is most important is our team. We truly have had the pleasure and the opportunity to work with some of the best in the business, some of the best partners, some of the best talent, some of the best staff that exist. And we really take pride in being able to put together these incredible teams of people who are of like mind and who have the same passions and same goals that we share. And the truth is that teamwork is really what gets you through the really difficult times, and there are a lot of those in event production. What we're looking for when we pick our partners and our staff are people who can think on their feet, who can react quickly and efficiently, who have great attitudes, who aren't afraid to take risks. We encourage people to take risks and not be afraid to fail, and we try to really foster that kind of environment where people can feel free to explore their passions and what they enjoy doing, and really determine where their strengths lie and focus on those areas. We've had people who have come to us. We had one person, for example, who came to us as a production manager and was a fantastic production manager, but realized that she really liked working in food and beverage. And we were able to help her hone her skills in that area and move over in that direction. And now she's a fantastic beverage manager. So we work with our people, and we like to help them discover and explore their passions as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's much easier to teach a new dog old tricks than teach an old dog new tricks. So, it's really fun to help develop new fresh talent. And there's many new fresh faces and talent in our industry. So we just always want to get a hold of them before everybody else does. We were saying that to create an epic experience, to us, you have to have an epic foundation, and that foundation is the team. So once you have that set and you have an incredible team, the next 4 parts to our cornerstones of a truly epic experience, or the anatomy of our epic experience, is ideate, create, engage, and amplify. And we feel if you can do all 4 of those things, you've got an incredible experience ahead of you. So to ideate, ideas, that's the fun part, right? Like when you sit in a room and have an ideation and a discussion to create and come up with what your next concept is going to be, everybody wants to be able to do that, right? We work decades to be able to be sitting in that creative room. Steve and I take a slightly different approach. We like to travel. So what we often do is we'll find different ways to ideate, whether it's traveling through culture, through books, through movies. Since I have a little bit of a Hollywood past, I like to go through old plays and movies, and actual history, which is probably my favorite. But there are so many ways to create an excellent idea, but you must have an excellent idea in order to have an excellent event or attraction. So that is a really important function. The next function that we've got is to create. Once somebody comes up, or a collective of people come up with this brilliant idea, because we like to do it with our group of team members, no matter what department you're in. Once you come up with this idea, then we have to assemble and collect the right team members who are going to be able to execute it. And that's not an easy feat. A lot of times your idea, you have parameters. You might have a budget in mind. You might have a specific location in mind. And you might have a timeline in mind. As a matter of fact, you probably have all 3. And so it's really important to have a great idea, but one is that is actually possible to execute. So when you bring in your creative team, your designers, your artists, your builders, your sound engineers, all of these different components, then they are able to have a very clear picture of what it is they have to create. And that is very important, especially in the themed attractions that we produce. We have nearly 20 different departments and department heads that we have to liaison with. So if we don't have a clear picture and don't have clear communication of what it is we're trying to build and set out to do, we might end up with a hodgepodge of an event, and it might not have a through line or a story, which we feel is very important. The third thing, which is probably the most fun, is engage, is actually turning all of the bones and the muscles of creating and ideating into the actual flesh and blood. It's making our event come alive. So it's a really fun part, but it's also a very challenging part. There's so many moving parts and pieces from different departments, from talent to costume to makeup to, all the way to accounting and attractions and marketing, and all of these different components that have to come together to create this perfect engagement. And you've got to be able to be on a great timeline. You've got to stay within budget, and you have to have a clear operating process. So that is the third component. And the fourth component for us, which for us is our secret sauce, I think, you have to have the it factor, amplify. And what we mean by that is amplify what you just created. So many event companies or production companies stop at engage. They've now created a show, it's now live and operating, but they didn't put in that X factor. And that X factor is what turns your guest into a fan. And it's the most important part of the entire anatomy of the event. So we're going to give you some examples of these things.
So one of my personal favorite elements is the ideation. As Charity said, we enjoy traveling. So we've taken it upon ourselves to get its inspiration from some of our travels, and looking into history and historical events, especially with venues like the Queen Mary that has just a rich history. And one of the most recent mazes that we created there, we introduced last year, called Rogue, was based on an actual historic event, but also on the movie The Poseidon Adventure. If you're familiar with it, it's about a rogue wave that hit a ship, in the movie, it completely capsized. In real life, a nearly 100-foot wave hit the Queen Mary during her worship service and nearly capsized her. It could have been a very catastrophic event, and it was an extremely significant event. So we took that and the elements of immersiveness and created a maze experience that was unlike anything we had ever produced. And that was a great deal of fun last year.
So I would say the other type of ideation that is really exciting to me is travel, as we already discussed. I really had it in my mind that I wanted to bring, America the first ice adventure park, and what better place to go and get inspired than Vienna, Austria. So we went ahead and went to Austria. We were able to see the second largest ice rink in the world, and it's pretty amazing when you go there. There's even a language barrier, but their willingness and excitement to share what they've created with us really helped in our inspiration and in the technical aspects of being able to create this type of an event here in Los Angeles. So I think travel is one of my favorite ways of ideating.
We keep going back to travel. I think Charity and I really like to travel more than we even realize. We went to China several times actually, to look at a number of events and activations there, and we're able to bring elements back to events that we were doing here. One being the Ice Kingdom at the Queen Mary, which was something that had never before been done anywhere on the West Coast. It was an indoor walkthrough attraction that had over 2 million pounds of ice and 2-story tall ice sculptures. And that's inspired from the Harbin International Ice and Snow Sculpture Festival in Harbin, China, where the sculptures are sometimes 4 and 5 stories tall. It's amazing. We also went to the Zigong International Lantern Festival in Zigong, China, which is a phenomenal event, probably one of my most awe-inspiring events that I've ever been to, that takes over about a 10-acre park with gigantic sculptures that are silk over aluminum framed sculptures that are lit from the inside. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. And we were able to bring elements of that back to some lantern activations that we've done at various events, including our interactive magic mushroom bar at Sheldon several years ago.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite bar of all time. It was an RFID bar, and it was pretty fantastic. My probably go-to and favorite type of ideation where I get the most inspiration is from true life. And our history is dripping with so many dramatic incidences and very interesting characters. And so last year we were tasked with bringing Dark Horizon, a new haunted attraction, to the East Coast in Orlando. In developing one of the stories of the haunted houses there, I stumbled upon this amazing character called Bloody Ed Watson, and that's him on the top, and then we recreated him on the bottom with our talent. But we have such talented builders and sculptors and designers and welders and painters and art and set deck and artistic and special effects that we were able to recreate, basically a living piece of history and haunt the crap out of it. It was really cool. So there are many different ways that you can ideate. And like I said, I think the most important thing is to be able to tie it back to where you are, tie it back to your location, and give it some merit, some meat, and some bones. And that is one of the biggest foundations of putting on a great attraction.
Yeah. So beyond ideation, the fun stuff is the nitty-gritty, getting down to the nitty-gritty work and the detail. So when we get into creation, our main goal is to bring together with hairline precision, 20 or more departments who are all operating, somewhat independently, but we are kind of the head and making sure that everyone is turned in the same direction and on the same path and accomplishing our goals. So jumping into kind of some of the more important aspects of what that looks like. We're going to walk through a few details of some events.
Yeah, so Dark Harbor is probably the biggest show that we mount. You know, it's nearly 700 cast and crew members, and it's spectacular. And we're on our 10th year of producing this event, and it's something we're really proud of. There are so many, as Steve said, so many different nuances to this event, but one of the main reasons this particular production is so successful is our relationship with the city. I think that is something that gets missed often when talking about special events and attractions and destination and themed entertainment. You must have or develop great relationships. You know, we've got, you know, a pick up the phone or text the police chief, the fire chief, you know, city planning, the mayor, the special events department at the city. It really takes an army to put together an event of this magnitude, and it affects all the residents in the city, all of the businesses in the city. And, you know, and we're trying to showcase one of the city's greatest assets, which is the Queen Mary herself. So dealing especially with something like the ship, which is this historic property, it's, you know, we have to do our due diligence in protecting the asset, sharing a piece of history, and being able to tell a really unique story with it while also protecting it, and making sure that it stays in its original state. So there's so many nuances in producing, and there's so many other elements that go into a large production. But planning with the city and the health department, especially with COVID, it's going to be a really key component in having an excellent event.
Absolutely. Another element that has been kind of unique for us in some of the events that we've worked on is the marketing itself. Particularly when you're mounting a new attraction, and we've had the opportunity to work on several brand new offerings in different markets. The Night Garden was an event that we had the opportunity to work on for the last 2 years. It was brand new when it was introduced in Miami at the Fairchild Botanical Garden. And it's a walk through lit action that is absolutely gorgeous. It lights up a phenomenal venue that if you're ever in Miami, you should absolutely go see. And it really comes to life at night with the lights and the various activations. But how do you get that across when it's never been done before and there are no images of it? That was the challenge with that event, and as well as with Chill in the first couple of years with the Ice Kingdom. You know, a giant ice sculpture event had never been done anywhere in the United States, and explaining to someone, or I'm sorry, not on the West Coast, it had been done in the United States, but explaining to people who had never heard of it that you'd be walking through giant ice sculptures, and the first thing that they go to is, you mean ice sculptures like the ones I see at the buffet on Sundays? No, giant ice sculptures, it's a totally different experience. How do you communicate that? And with both events, it was done with a various variety of illustrations and renderings and things like that. So here you can see an example of one of the early renderings of Night Garden that was used in Miami, and that ended up being extremely successful. The larger picture is one of the final product pictures through the rainforest there. But that event became wildly successful beyond anything anyone imagined in its first year. It was great to be a part of.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so important to be able to tell a story with your marketing materials, especially in this day and age when social media is so important in marketing a project. You need visual aspects. So making sure you have this great team of marketers and social media marketers, I think, is something that a lot of people miss. And it's really important to have engaging collateral and imagery. So with the next one, I would say, like we've been saying, every department is so important, but things that stick out to us that aren't always discussed are what we're working with here. And for Dark Horizon in Orlando, it's definitely project management. We were asked by our client to expedite a show that we thought we would be doing a following year, and a show that normally takes 8 months to a year to execute. And instead we were going to do it in, 4 months. So we we literally had to accelerate our timeline. We didn't know the city. We didn't know the people in the city. We'd never produced in this particular state before. And there were so many nuances of not knowing specific talent that we really had to draw and rely upon our relationships again, whether it's in vendorship, whether it's in talent, and other shows that we know down in Florida, or talent on the crew side, different scenic artists and painters and things. It was really important to have a timeline that we have basically as a template that we drop into a lot of our projects, and be able to navigate it, especially when we got into building. We only had 6 weeks to build our event, and in week 2 we had a hurricane. So we had to strike everything, start all over, and now we're looking at 4 weeks to open a show. And there were so many times I didn't think we were going to be able to do it. But as we'll discuss a little later, is you never let them see you sweat. You've got to just put one foot in front of the other, follow your timeline like it's the Bible, and have great lines of communication. And I think that's probably the only reason that we got that show mounted, was the amazing ability of our talent, the fact that they would never stop until the job was done, and that we were literally unstoppable. We were unwilling to fail.
Yeah, that was one of those events where I think the day before opening, I flew to Orlando from another event, and I took the red eye and I landed at 6 a.m. And when I arrived at the property, our team was still up working. Not they were early working, they were still up working to get us to the finish line. So that was an incredible experience.
And that goes back to that foundation of team members.
Yeah. Another major piece of the puzzle, obviously, is logistical and operations. And we had the opportunity to be a part of the world premiere of the Nerf Challenge at LA Live last year. This was an event that brought to life, if you grew up with Nerf toys and activities, it brought to life in a way that you were seen for. It was large-scale activations and very participatory, a very active environment for both kids and adults. And it was a lot of fun to be a part of. It was a huge challenge in that we were dealing obviously with a major brand who had specific ideas for how their brand needed to be presented. But it also was a little bit of a test run, if you will, because we were operating this event for about a month and a half, that the intention was to hone the operation and really how it should go so they could get on the road and on a worldwide tour. So we were paying very close attention to what was working, what wasn't, what games were working, how is this working, how is that not working. And literally sometimes rules of a game would change 4 times within a day. So making sure that a staff of 350 people all understand that the rules that existed when they clocked out last night might not exist when you clock in at 3 o'clock the next day, and keeping, again, those lines of communication open and flowing was a huge challenge, but it's something that we worked really hard at. And again, thanks to a great team and great communication, it was a very successful event.
Absolutely. I'm surprised we're still alive after that one. Once you have the cornerstone of ideation, and now you've created this amazing footprint event, you've built it, it's ready to go. The next cornerstone that you've got to get through is engagement, right? This is where it all comes to life, like we talked about. And, communication. We now have 20 leaders that have to be able to disseminate information, directors, directing 300 to 500 different, talent. We've got costumes, we've got makeup, we've got everything that now has to come to life. They're coming into a project that you've been working on for nearly a year, and they don't know their way around it unless you've given them a great diagram through your creation and ideation. So now making things come to life, our show is about to open. We've got all our cast members in there. We've gone through auditions, operations, training, orientations, literally everything. And the biggest thing that I think is most important that so many people forget, especially in themed entertainment and immersive experiences, are driving story. And so that would be my biggest focus for this particular section through engagement is you want to engage, like I said before, your audience. You want to engage your guest and turn them into a fan. And the way you do that is by pushing story, immersing them deeper and deeper into your world. And you want to do it from the moment they purchase their ticket to the minute they walk out that door, so they leave talking about it and want to return year after year. So one of the things we do is queue activation. We like to drive story in queues. In Halloween attractions, you spend so much of your time standing in line. So what better thriving audience do you have than in that moment? So we've added bars before to our queue. We've added strolling entertainers to our queue, and we usually add our main characters to it so they can drive the story, tell the backstory of what they're about to experience. And we found that to be really exciting.
We've even at times added characters and monsters to the shuttles, bringing people from the locations where they park off site to the event itself to start their experience from the minute they get out of their car. Secondary touch points and interactivity is another great opportunity for engagement. Here you see the ice bumper cars that we created at our Chill Ice Adventure Park that we produced at the Queen Mary. And we're really big on creating opportunities that every turn guests interact with our event, whether it's themed food outlets, guest triggered experiences, activities that they can participate in, any opportunity for the guests to participate in their experience, to choose their own adventure in terms of the maze experience, if that's an opportunity, is really effective and impactful. Our goal is to always be the destination, not to be a stop along the way. We want people to come and feel like they can spend their entire evening or their entire day, whatever the event may be, with us, and still not feel like they did everything and they got bored.
Absolutely. And with all of those activations comes, intimate settings. I think it's really important, especially when you're dealing in really large crowds, to create little nuances for people to go and have a closer user touch point with our staff and with our cast and crew. It's something that sets us apart from other places because there's little story drivers that can happen in a really seedy, cool little bar like the one you're looking at. So we try to create these tiny experiences, these micro experiences for people so that every time they come, they have something different. There's definitely a balance between creating an event for a person for the first time and creating that same event for a person who's come every year for 10 years. And you want to keep it new and fresh. So, adding layer upon layer upon layer of little nuances is what I think is the golden ticket for a great epic experience.
I think one of our favorite things is putting little Easter eggs in different places throughout the event and then seeing who picks up on them. That's always one of the most interesting things to me as we go through it. With engagement, also obviously the importance of live shows, and especially at haunt events, as Cherry said, the majority of your time at a haunt event is probably being spent in a queue line. So we've worked really hard over the years to create experiences outside of the mazes and outside of the queues, and live shows are one way that we've done that, from aerialists to fire performers to strolling entertainers and magicians to sideshow and stage acts and freak shows and things of that nature. So any opportunity we have to keep people entertained and engaged is something that we really strive to do. We've added, in some cases, we've added stages in our queue lines themselves, so that queues that are particularly long have their own entertainment, and we'll have rotating entertainment come through to keep them engaged during the time that they're standing in line waiting to get to the maze.
Yeah. And then, so many production companies stop right there at engagement. They put on a great show, and that's it. What I think is really important, what we feel like is our little secret sauce, is amplification. And that really sets us apart from our competitors. I think it's really important to add a layer of immersion. You want to, at this point, like I keep driving home, you want to convert your guest into a fan. A fan is with you for the duration of your events, over any type of event, over any platform. And that is the ultimate, that's the ultimate win, is creating that fan who's constantly coming back for more and relies upon you and expects that you're going to deliver every single time.
Definitely. So audience participation is one of the ways that we really try to add that layer of amplification, not just with shows that they can watch, but shows that they can participate in, interact with the host, with some of our monsters, choosing their own paths in a maze. I think I mentioned before, any way for them to participate in the event. We've had one of our freaks, Dark Harbor, you can actually come up and pull a bill to his body, which is one of the more disgusting ways you can participate at Dark Harbor, I think. One that I don't choose to participate, but it's a great opportunity that a lot of people enjoy and take advantage of. So.
Yeah. And, the other thing is always to be striving for that one-of-a-kind experience. And it might not be one-of-a-kind per se, but maybe it's one-of-a-kind within the activation that you're doing. At Dark Harbor, one of those for us is our ice bar. We do vodka tastings in our ice bar. They're always themed around, one of our attractions, one of our mazes. And sometimes they're even within the footprint of what our maze is. So between that, we also like to do alternate paths, specialty tastings. We've got a secret whiskey bar that you can find out information on some of our deeper dives that we'll talk about in a second. Just creating those nuanced experiences that make your guests go, wait, I didn't get to do that. Let's try that again. Let's go back.
Yeah. Unique exclusivities, adding layers that allow people to elevate their participation and their experience. We are in LA, the land of the VIP experience. So at Dark Harbor, and even at our events elsewhere, we've added VIP experiences that could include, here you see a cabana, two of our cabana experiences or bungalow experiences where you can have private parties. We have the RIP lounge where you can have a place to kind of get away from the minutes of the for a little bit and go take a load off, have a drink at a private bar, have some food that's included in the space. We have some very exclusive VIP tours called Ultimate Scream that allow you to go with a group of just 10 people and skip every line in the event. You get to the front of the line and get to go through each of the mazes or haunted houses, as well as getting some personal history and backstory on the characters, on the mazes, on the history of the ship or the event itself. And those have all proven to be successful for us.
Yeah. And then I think last but certainly not least, probably my favorite is adding secret challenges, having a fully immersive experience within your already immersive event is like the I Ching for us. Last year, we created a Terror Up experience. So if tapped at the very entrance, you could opt in for a deeper, more frightening scare, which means you might be separated from your friends, you might be kidnapped, you might be, moved to a secret location, you might have to go through an alternate path or a crawl space. And all of these extras, secret bars at Dark Harbor, and secret passageways and trying to find them, all of these extras is what people leave talking about. And I think that is, what truly makes up an epic experience.
Definitely. So with that, with all the work that you put in and all the forethought that you put in, another very important element of producing events is be ready to roll with the punches, because things are going to go wrong. There's no way around it. The unexpected is going to happen. So you have to be able to be ready for it, have contingency plans in place. Here you see two acts of Mother Nature that were fairly devastating. One, a massive lightning storm where we had 3 lightning strikes within 100 yards of our event within about a half-hour period. and we had to close down Dark Harbor for the first time in its history mid-show. And we were able to evacuate about 10,000 people on a Saturday night out of the event in about 5 minutes because of the plans that we had in place and our team just being on top of it, which was great.
Yeah, and I mean, that really, rounds out what it takes to have an epic experience. I think the only most important thing for you young producers out there is to never let them see you sweat. Things will go wrong. Everything will collapse at one point or another in some way or some fashion. And while you might be screaming inside, you've got to put on that brave face, put one foot in front of the other, and figure out how you're going to open the doors and get from A to B. And, it rolls downhill. So if you appear calm, cool, and collected, your leaders will see that and they will take your lead on that. And then so will all the team members. But if they see you crumble, it's just a domino effect. And it's something that you absolutely, rule number one, can't do as a producer.
Definitely. So with that, I think if there is time, we're happy to take questions. I'm not sure that we have the time. Dominic can let us know.
I think we might have time for like one question. If anyone has a quick question they want to throw up. Anybody? I have a question. What do you recommend for people that are in college age that want to get into this sort of industry? What sort of advice do you have for those people?
My advice to people who want to get into the industry is, just dive in any capacity. Take the leap. Most large events have, different jobs available and you can work your way up from just about anywhere. We have monsters that are now on the production team. We've got bartenders that are now monsters. We've got, producers that used to be in IT. I mean, I think it runs the gamut. You just got to put that first step forward and be open-minded, be positive, be willing to do the job at any cost and have a great attitude doing it. Have fun. We're not doing brain surgery here. You got to have some fun.
Events are like a giant group project. So everyone's familiar with school and group projects. You don't want to be the one person that is letting your group down. And you also don't want to be the one person that is having to do all of the work and drive everyone across the finish line. So I think keeping that mindset together, you all have a common goal. You're all working toward the same end goal and trying to create an amazing experience for your guests, I think is key.
Yeah, and get out and do it now while you're still in college. People come into the event industry very young, so you don't want to wait till you're out of college. You can move up very quickly in this industry, and we say start young, start now.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys both so much. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. It's been really informative and really helpful, so thank you.
Thank you for having us.